Okay, so Woody asked me to shepherd this thing along since he knows his own faults and we'd be here till Tuesday. So I'm going to put her on the spot, but Joyce, do you want to come up and talk first?
Hi. I really enjoyed seeing the slideshow. That was a very good representation of our week. And we went to Jamaica to run a VBS was pretty much our mission, and also work on the house. And if any of you participated in West Town's VBS, you know that our theme was Journey Off the Map. Well, we indeed took a journey off the map while we were in Jamaica. Because many things were not as we had planned, not as we had expected, and but God saw us through all of it. And the main thing that I really learned is to trust God more. And as Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 and 6 goes, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. Acknowledge him in all your ways, and he shall direct your path. And he did direct our path. God said, trust me that this VBS thing was going to work, even when we got there and found out that none of our materials had arrived. And the Jamaican director that was supposed to coordinate everything, she had had an emergency in her family, and she was in the United States. So we were just kind of, let loose, here are the kids. Have at it, and God said, trust me, and so I did, and it worked beautifully. God filled in all the gaps for us. God said, trust me for team unity. You saw in the pictures, we ranged in ages from 10 all the way up to 77, and I know I look good for my age, but I am not 77. But you saw Pat up there. Pat is from 12 Stone, which is right outside of a church right outside of Atlanta, and she is she confesses that she's just a big teenager, and she was great, and so were the kids. Speaking about great, we had 3 children with us. Children/teenagers, and they were super. I never heard any of them complain. I never heard any of them argue with their parents or with each other. And we had a lot of unexpected things happen, and even the food was different. There were things like bammy and breadfruit and festival and callaloo and things that we had never heard of before. But they were trying things, and they were so good with the Jamaican children. I'm really proud of our young people that went on this trip, and I encourage you, all ages. It's a really great thing. And also, God said, trust me that I'm going to bring people from all nations into my kingdom. And I was just aware as we worshiped. We had about 3 opportunities to worship with the Jamaican people. It just made me so aware that all over the world there are people, God's people, worshiping him in truth and in love. And it just made me that much more inspired to go tell others about God's amazing love. God said, trust me for team unity. When you have all the ages differences, you have gender differences, you have political differences. I mean, the potential was there for, somebody not to get along. But God said, trust me in this. And he pulled our team together, and by the end of the week, we were like one big happy family. And it was a beautiful thing to watch. Let's see, make sure I'm not missing anything. Oh, my funny moment. And I didn't have a chance to touch bases with Cherie because her funny moment might be the same as my funny moment. So, and this happened after we got back to Atlanta. You've been flying for a few hours. You get off the airplane, and probably one of the first things you're going to do is look for a restroom. Well, that was the case with me. And I had my backpack with me, and I was on my way. That I wanted to leave my backpack, and because there was a group that didn't have to go, and they were standing along the wall. So I thought, well, I'll put my backpack with them and not carry it with me. Well, I did an about face like this, and was walking, and Cherie and I walked right into each other, and we were like a couple of sumo wrestlers. We just bounced. it was funny. You would have to have been there. Maybe we could reenact it for you sometime. But it was really great. And when I thought about when did I laugh the hardest, that was when I laughed the hardest. But Cherie and Marilyn and I were roommates, and we just formed an incredible bond. And that's one of the beautiful things that happens on a mission trip. You really get to know people that you didn't know before. And there were a lot of people on this team that I really didn't know very well, but now I do, and I'm blessed and I'm thankful. And thank you for listening.
All right, since you mentioned one of the children, why don't we have Tim and Ellie come up? I'm looking for you. I don't see it. Oh.
You want to start? You can go first. Okay. Never been on a mission trip in my life, which was, one of those things where I always wanted to make sure that I made a mission trip. And I hope a year does not go by in the rest of my life that I miss a mission trip. I really desire that to be something that happens every year, and I'm going to try to see that if the Lord desires that, that's something that I do. But one of the special moments that I had were I would notice that all the girls, our girls, the kids were constantly touching their hair. They were constantly braiding their hair. They were constantly, their hands were in their hair all the time, and the girls were just allowing it, and just let the girls, have at it. And it was so precious just to watch that, the Jamaican kids with their hands in their hair and braiding their hair and everything. That they were just fascinated. And so somewhere in the week, about the second day, after the kids were getting comfortable with everybody, here I'm an old man. I'm sitting down there, and I feel a hand go in the back of my hair, and I'm thinking, there's not much back there. I'm not sure what you're going to find back there, and I feel another hand go in my head, and then another hand, and another hand, and I'm sweaty. I'm drenched in sweat, and it was just, I kind of looked back there, and it was a bunch of little girls behind me, and they were all just fascinated. Some were trying to put braids in there, and some were just running, and their hands were drenched. They would even wipe them on my shoulder. And I thought, how could y'all do that? I mean, I'm just drenched. I don't like to touch anybody's sweat, including my own daughters. I don't really, and yet they had no reservations. They sat there, and it occurred to me little bit by little bit, these are God's hands. He's touching you right now, and He's loving you through these children. Be aware of that. Except you become like a little child, you'll never enter the kingdom of heaven. Love like these children are loving. Learn how to love like they're loving. And that moment was a real dramatic moment in my life that it taught me something huge at that moment. But I guess the funniest moment was Philip and the girls came over to our room one night, and I'm not sure how they got me to get out of the room, but I had left for a second and came back, and they left to go back to their room to go to sleep. I threw the covers back, laid back in the bed, and I'm talking to Stephen and Jacob over there, and I look over there, and I'm thinking, why am I wet? And I feel wet all over. And I said, what is? And then I realized, I get up out of the bed, and I said, my shorts are wet all the way through, and my hair's wet. They said, because all them three jokers got in your bed with their bathing suits on, and they rubbed all around and threw your covers back. So that was one of the funny moments.
I just want to say that all those children made me feel really good because they were all like playing with me, and I just felt like I was being loved by all of them. But I also want to tell one thing that was really funny. So we, when Jacob and Steven went to the pool, me, my dad, and Taylor went into their room. We short-sheeted their bed. We hid their toothbrush and their toothpaste, and we hid their chocolate that they got. And we did some things in the bathroom which they told us not to touch.
So that's not even 1/3 of the pranks that they tried, and I'm sure some more will come out, and if not, I'll sell some stories about Woody or whatever for the highest bidder out back later. But related to that, let's have Jacob and Stephen come up, since they seem to be the center of some of the pranks as well.
Well, I have to say I didn't know what short sheeting a bed was. I know I got into the bed, and me and Jacob, and I'm sitting there and I'm kicking my legs. I'm like, what is going on with these sheets? I said, this is ridiculous. I said, they must have just tucked them. And anyway, where's Ellie and Taylor? Yeah, that was funny. Yeah, I'd never been on a mission trip either. It was one of the things that I wanted to do. More importantly, I wanted to take Jacob with me, and we were truly blessed by being around those children. They were so loving and accepting. It was unbelievable. And since Tim stole my Bible verse, I was thinking about that this afternoon. Jesus said that we need to become like children to enter into the kingdom of heaven. And one of the things that what he was trying to tell us is that we needed to be accepting like children. And I got to see these kids just accept us. They didn't know us. They didn't know who we were. We were strangers. And you would have never thought it. As soon as we walked up, they just started grabbing hold of you, hugging, wanting to play with our phones, of course. And it was amazing, just the love. And there was a picture of a little boy. We were teaching the story of Joseph, and we were doing a Bible verse. And one other girl had jumped up, I think it was in your hands or somebody's arms, and he looked at me and said, and I said, picked him up, we jumped. And then we were shouting the Bible verse to get it louder than the teenage group over there. And it was just amazing. When I was a kid, I wouldn't have jumped up in a stranger's arm that I'd never met before. I'd have been like, nah, no. These kids, no, they were the total opposite. So if you've ever thought or even had the idea of going on a mission trip, I would say, definitely. The love that you experience is overwhelming. It's nothing like I've experienced nor probably will experience for a while from those kids. The funny moment, and that was pretty funny with Tim's bed. But I didn't have anything to do with that. I think the funniest moment was I was sitting down and I was watching them face paint. And the little girl come up with a sponge and wanted to paint my face. And I said, well, sure. And I lay back. Next thing I know, there's like 4 girls standing over top of me. And they're just, I can feel the paint running down my face and onto my shirt. And they're just giggling and laughing and painting. I'm thinking, oh, no. But then I started laughing. It was amazing. And it was pretty funny. Jacob, do you have anything? You don't have anything? I tell you, Jacob had the kids they all worked well together. Yeah, there was pranking going on. I know. All right, one more funny one. This was the funniest. This is his. So we wanted to get him back for short sheeting the bed. So Tim had worked it out so the girls were away, and Jacob got into the shower, closed the shower curtain, and I got into the closet and closed that. We had our cameras on, and we were recording it. So Tim brought the girls in with the idea that they were going to get us again. So he sent them into the bathroom, and they were in the bathroom, and Jacob pops out of the shower, rah! And they scared him, and then they come stumbling out and I come out of the closet, and I'm like, rah! And they screamed again. I mean, we just formed such a tight bond together, and that's another thing you do get when you go over there, is the bond that you form together with one another, and it's amazing. So if you ever get the opportunity to sign up, do it.
So since Jacob didn't share, I'll share something about Jacob. To be honest, when I was his age, there was no way I would have gone to Jamaica, and there's no way I would have behaved the way he did. It was like a true adult running around. You never had to, I don't think I had to tell you one time to do anything. He saw a problem, he'd jump on it and he'd fix it. Or he'd just go play with the kids. The food was jerk chicken every day. And Jacob didn't like jerk chicken, but he never complained once. And I promised him pizza one day, and I had to come back to him because we couldn't make pizza work that day. No complaining, no even frowning. Okay, no problem. And that's just, at his age, I wouldn't have done that. And so, Jacob, since you didn't talk, I'll talk for you, but I would gladly go with you again anywhere. So, well done. So, all right. And something else that kind of has come out that I didn't realize until I was sitting here this morning, I think of the 11 folks that we had, there were only 3 that had been on a mission trip before. Because, Joyce, you hadn't been. Cherie, you hadn't been. Marilyn hadn't been. I had never been, even though I tried a couple times, it didn't work. Jacob and Stephen had never been, and Ellie, you hadn't been, right? And Tim said he hadn't been. So it was just Pat, Woody, and Taylor that had been. And we still went down there and had a very successful time. So don't let that be a why you can't go. There was nothing extraordinarily hard about it. It was very hot. And again, the kids didn't complain once. I complained about the heat. Woody complained about the heat. You heard Tim sweating the whole time. We complained about the heat. You didn't hear one thing out of them. Like it didn't matter. And so with that, I'll welcome Cherie up to give her side.
It needs to come down. My friends, I knew I wanted to do something for God. I wasn't sure what. I kept kind of waiting for him to tell me what to do. And then when Pastor Rod said to me, "Oh, we're doing a mission trip, and it's VBS," I said, "What's VBS?" And he said, "Vacation Bible School for Kids." I was like, kids. I love kids. This is about me. This is what God is telling me to do. And so this is the first overseas mission I've ever been on. And I was a little bit scared, except that I've been on many, many, many trips around the world, but only as a visitor, as a vacationer. So this was the first time that I was willing to subject myself to whatever God decided. So the hotel was not up to what I normally would have, chosen. And, everything that we did was not what I would have chosen. However, everything turned out perfect. Everything turned out exactly the way God wanted it to turn out, which is what made me cry when I left Jamaica. The team, I heard someone say it this morning. I think it was Pastor Rod. Pastor Rod said, you wouldn't look at these 10 people and say, oh, yeah, that they would have been like, yeah, let's hang out. And it was totally true. Although I did have a couple of friends already from ladies' Bible study that I already knew, and so that was all cool. But I didn't know the rest of these people, and I didn't know how it was going to go. And I was really, really, uncertain. But you know what? Oh, my God. It was so spiritual. And to say that, I don't even know the right words. The people on the trip, everybody was just so perfect. Everybody just filled their own certain roles. And I, hope I filled my role. And at the same time, everybody was just so Woody. Woody is very special. God has chosen him. God chooses special people, very humble, beautiful people to do his work. And he chose Woody. And at first I didn't get it. I was like, God, really? Woody knows that. But then I got it. And I was like, oh, now I get it. Woody is so beautiful. Woody is doing what God wants for him. Woody is perfect in what he is doing. And at the same time, Philip was the perfect balance for him, like the yin and the yang. Thank God we had such a balance in our group. And then we had wonderful, neutral people who always kept the peace, like Tim and Joyce, my roommate. And, and then there was the 3 wonderful kids. I mean, oh my God, I couldn't have asked for anything more special. God set the whole thing up. So if you're thinking about something, some way that you can give back, like, God has given so much to me in so many ways, and I always feel guilty. It's like, wow, God, really, you've given me so much. Well, God, you know how he is. To whom God has given much, he expects much in return. And so I feel like I have to give a lot in return. So if you feel like you have to give something in return, then just remember just to keep your thoughts open. And this international missionary work, I mean, I never thought of myself as a missionary. I thought of women in black dresses, and, that whole thing that you see in movies. So I never thought of myself like that. But people can be missionaries in their own unique way. And that is all God asks from us, is to do the one thing that he's asking from us. And so I contributed, and you know what? Like Pastor Rod said, I brought back way more than I thought I gave. And I feel guilty. I feel guilty because I went down there, those kids loved on me. And by the time I left, I just cried. I said, I want to move down here. I love these people. These are wonderful people. But, people all over the world are wonderful people. So wherever the missionary work is, go. Help those people. They're no better, no worse. They're just like us. They're struggling. And, if you can give them, a hand up, oh my God, what a privilege that is. So I loved my team. And I could not hug them enough. I love them so much. And at the same time, I love the Jamaican people, the kids, the grown-ups, the people that helped us, the pastors. Every single experience was something you can't expect and you can't pay for. So I would love to see more of you who might be inspired to do something like that. I would love to see you not be afraid. There's nothing to be afraid of. You just need to go and you need to trust God, because God's got it. And when God has it, there's nothing to be worried about. And that's what I had to figure out during the trip. So thank you so much.
So Cherie alluded to something that where we all kind of were very different, but we all came together in the end. And Pat's not with us. She's over probably in Atlanta. And she was the world's oldest teenager, as she said. She roomed with the 2 teenage girls. And honestly, we got onto Pat more than we got onto the girls for letting the girls run around pranking people. But she read something, I think it was on Friday. And it won't take very long. I'm going to read it to you, what she had. And some of you have probably heard it. I had never heard it before. And I thought it fit really well with what we are. And it's called The Carpenter's Tools. And understand, I'll kind of explain as I go along. But it says, Brother Hammer served as the chairman. The other members of the tool belt informed him that he must leave because he was too noisy. But Brother Hammer said, if I have to leave this carpenter's shop, then Brother Gimlet must go too. He's insignificant and makes very small impressions. And so everybody knows a gimlet's a small tool with a screw point, a groove shank, and a cross for boring little holes. So little Brother Gimlet arose and said, all right, but Brother Screwdriver must go also. You have to turn him around and around to get anywhere with him. Brother Screwdriver turned to the other tools in the belt and said, if you wish, I will go, but Brother Plane must leave too. All of his work is on the surface, and there is no depth to what he does. To this, Brother Plane leveled his terse reply. Well then, Brother Saw will have to depart too. The changes he proposes always cut way too deep. Brother Saw complained, saying, Brother Ruler will have to withdraw if I leave, for he's always measuring other folks as though he were the only one who is right. Brother Ruler then surveyed the group and said, Brother Sandpaper doesn't belong here either. He's rougher than he ought to be, and he's always rubbing people the wrong way. In the midst of the discussion, the carpenter of Nazareth walked in. He had come to perform his day's work. He put on his tool belt. He went to the workbench to make a pulpit. He employed the ruler, the saw, the plane, the hammer, the gimlet, the screwdriver, the sandpaper, and all of the other tools. When the day's work was over, the pulpit was finished, and absolutely true. And the carpenter went home. All of the accusations against each of these tools were absolutely true, yet the carpenter used every one of them. No matter which tool he used, no other tool could have done the work better. And so it says, thought, we are all tools in Jesus' toolbox. Each of us has a purpose, ability, and task to perform. And so Pat brought that forward, probably at the time when the team really came together. And that, I think, just cemented it. And I wish she could have been here to say it to you, but she couldn't come over for this. So with that, there was one birthday on the trip, so I will invite Marilyn to come up and talk about her trip.
Not only is this my first mission trip, I mean, I haven't been even a member of this church, so I'm new to all this. So I figured I didn't have anything to contribute at all, so I wasn't even going to go. But I talked to Joyce, who's my spiritual advisor, and she said, I did have something to contribute, so I decided, use my photos as, so that was the reason. But I got a lot more out of it. I thought I was going to be just an observer and, be taking pictures. But, you're taking pictures, and you can see the way the kids were smiling. It touched me so much, that the smiles, that I was right there with them when I was taking those pictures, and I really got into it. I think a lot of what I was going to say has been said already, but I mean, I think one thing was really, Philip was MacGyver. He's the go-to guy. Anything that goes wrong, he can fix it. And I don't know what we would have done without him, honestly. I mean, everybody else was great too, but Philip, he kind of pulled it all together, and I completely appreciate that. The other thing, I have some cheat sheet here, just in case I forget. What I wanted to say is what other people have said. I just marveled at the way the group, the whole bunch of people that totally would not even have gotten together on a social level. We wouldn't be saying, hey, let's go out to dinner. But we didn't have any major drama. Little things here and there. We're all human, but there was no drama. And I have to say, my Joyce and Cherie were perfect roommates for me, because we got along famously. We shared a lot of personal things that I hadn't shared with other people, and I felt comfortable to do that. And Joyce was the peacemaker, and she was our liaison. In case we had anything that we didn't agree with, we would tell Joyce, and then she would bring it to the powers that be. And they would, namely Woody most of the time, if we didn't agree with something. But we found that was the best diplomatic. She's very diplomatic, and the way she approaches things. So she was great, and our morning routine was perfect. I was the early riser, then Joyce would get up, and then Cherie would be last. But it worked out. I mean, and we didn't even have to discuss it. It just somehow, that was just the way it worked out. It was perfect. As I said, I had a birthday last Friday, and it was the best birthday. And I'm not just saying it was such a great birthday, because in the morning everyone's saying happy birthday to me. Then we get to the church, and I'm sitting down waiting for the action to start. Waiting for things to start. All of a sudden, the kids converge, and they start singing happy birthday. And it was so great. And then they all, came around me and hugged me, and I was so touched. I couldn't believe it. It was the best thing. Then the evening, of course, we went to, guess where? Pizza Hut. Believe it or not, they have a Pizza Hut in Jamaica. And we went there, and they couldn't seat us. Anyway, I ended up going back with Joyce and Cherie, and I had jerk chicken. Oh, gee, shocking, right? Jerk chicken. And but afterwards, they came back, and we were told we need to go upstairs. So we went upstairs, and they all sang happy birthday again. So I had happy birthday sung to me a number of times that day. It was a great birthday. And my I was racking my brains trying to think of a funny moment because there were lots of moments, but I know this may sound, whoops, I'm going to kiss the mic. This may sound crazy, but we were sitting at a nice restaurant, and our driver, Kingsley, who you saw a picture of him with his daughter, was showing us a $1,000 bill in Jamaican, which is like equal to $10 in American money. And I was looking at it, and I said, wow, that picture looks like George Bush. George Bush, the second president. So, everybody was like, what? Everybody agreed with me that it looked just like George Bush. So I said, wow, they must really love George Bush in Jamaica to put him on, on a $1,000 bill. So, that was I don't know if it was anyone else's funniest moment, but I laughed and laughed about that for a long time. I still find it funny. So I don't know. It was just crazy. But anyway, I had a great time, and I'm most likely going to go next year. Philip better go because he keeps us together, baby. And that's about it. Thank you.
All right, so I've kind of gone throughout, and I'll just share a couple quick things. There's a million funny things, and I can't really narrow it down to any of them, but I'll tell you some of the most fun things. I don't know if you saw the picture where I was on the ground, and there was a whole bunch of kids around me. I was trying to grab one of them. Well, this guy, 36-year-old, who has the body of a 55-year-old, according to his doctor, thought it would be a good idea to start a tickle fight with one or two of the kids. And there was about 75 of them there, and it quickly turned into 75 versus 1. And they were on top of me by the end, and I had to get them off, and I couldn't, and it was exciting, but there was nothing but laughter and fun. And that kind of goes back to the serious thing. Walking into the room, they just wanted to be loved on, and they were all, adults and children, were content with what they had. And it wasn't like they needed anything more. They didn't need, in my case, the newer truck or the newest computer or any of that other stuff. They got their bag juice, which was 20 Jamaican dollars, 20 US cents, every day. And that was the highlight. And they would come play. And by play, we would play this game called Starvation. They loved it. And think of Keep Away, boys versus girls, with this ratty old Nerf football that you've all played with a Nerf football probably, where people have pricked out all the little hand things. I mean, it was falling apart. I don't think the points were on the football anymore. But we would play, and there was nothing but laughter and enjoyment, and it was just a good time. But it never turned to where you'll see, like when I was a kid anywhere, exceptionally competitive. It never turned that way. Everybody was having a good time. A boy got hurt, all the girls would rush over to make sure he was okay. A girl got hurt, all the boys would rush over. And it was just, the sense of family was there. And the sad thing to me was, as the 36-year-old male there, about the age of a lot of their fathers, they just wanted to be loved on by a male. So Kingsley was telling us, and Bernard too, 20% of the male population in Jamaica goes to church compared to 80% of the women. And most of the kids go because the women raise the children. And Jamaica has set up their laws dissimilar to the U.S., where there's no reason for the male to stick around after he is the father of a child. There is no alimony, doesn't exist. Child support doesn't exist. There's no government funding. There's no reason for the male to stick around. And so you see a lot of single moms. And I think a lot of it goes to, they just want to be loved for a little while. And so they get that. And I would say that I had a different most touching moment, but the most touching moment actually came on the way here. And that's Shelley and I were talking. And she said that she's so proud of me because 2 years ago, she would have never expected that this would be here. And I won't go into our whole testimony because it is a full testimony. If you want to see it, we're going to give it at CR in probably a couple months. But it's true. 2 years ago today, there was a very good chance that I would not be standing here, particularly with Isaiah. Elijah wasn't here yet, and, with Shelley. So that's the most touching moment to me. And it was just amazing. It seems like I was supposed to go on that mission trip to Mexico 2 years ago, and then we separated shortly after that. And every time I was going to go on a mission trip, there was a reason why I couldn't go. The bottom line last time, the NSA wouldn't let me go. They physically said, you cannot go. This time, it just seemed like there was 1,000 reasons why I shouldn't go on this mission trip, whether it was work or personal or things were closed on a house in 3 days. There's all these reasons, but we just bit the bullet and went. And it was amazing from the minute I showed up here to go to the airport. Everything just fell in line. Yeah, there were hiccups, but whatever, we overcame. And it was beautiful. And the last big thing that happened to me, on Wednesday night, we went to see Kingsley preach. We all wanted to see Kingsley preach. And Kingsley was this very soft-spoken guy, bus driver, very soft-spoken, until he gets in the pulpit. Now, when I first started dating Shelley, she went to an Assembly of God. Was that what Carpenter's home was? Assembly of God church. So everybody's seen Annie up here. That's very junior varsity compared to what her church is like. Pentecostal preachers and her family. It was that kind of service. We didn't stop worship until you were certain the Holy Spirit was there. And there's no timelines. And then when Kingsley gets up there, this thin, frail old man has a booming voice that you can't imagine. And he preaches about Bethesda and the guy waiting for his miracle when Jesus comes and tells him to pick up his bedroll. And I won't go into all that. But it was just amazing to hear that. But the worship was so good. And Cherie doesn't know this, but Cherie requested Amazing Grace. And that was my mom's favorite song. And so I really got into worship that night. And that's where I felt like I finally let go of my mom and let her go. So you didn't know it, and nobody did, but that was another very touching thing. So with that, I'll invite, do you and Taylor want to go together, or? Okay, so I'll invite Woody and Taylor, our fearless leaders.
You get to go first.
No.
Yeah, you got to.
Well, okay. This is my second mission, and I love mission trips. They are amazing. Like, they bring people together so well. Like, I didn't even know half the people on my team until the mission trip. I became best friends with Ellie because she reminded me so much of my little sister. And I just made so many friends while I was there, and it was so fun. And pretty much the funniest moment was when I pranked my grandfather. Well, it was like the last moment thinking. Me, Miss Pat, and Ellie, we got a rag full of shaving cream, and then we walked over to his room, which is right down the hall. We knocked on the door, and he answered, and look in his eye, he knew something was up. And like, I asked him what time do we have to wake up in the morning, and I just shoved it in his face. And I didn't mean to, but I kind of got in his eyes, and it kind of burnt him. It was an accident.
So I was in the room. Let me add a little bit more to the story. Because of how Woody is. Woody's like, Philip, get a camera, take a picture. Hurry, I can't wait anymore. But he wanted a picture because he wanted a record of the fact that this was the first night. And he had been snoring when they knocked on the door, and I'm just thankful that he answered the door, not me. But that's Woody's character.
Next year, I am planning on going on another mission trip, and if Philip comes, he has it coming.
They never got me, not once.
Him, Ellie, and like all of them, they all work together, and like everybody was pranking them, like one after another. There's prank after prank. We even got Shelly. Sorry, I'm so sorry. I'm thinking of someone else. Well, we pretty much pranked everybody. Oh, except for Joyce and Marilyn. Oh yeah, I remember that, by the pool. Yeah, I got pranked a lot by Ellie. I was not expecting that. She was supposed to be my partner in crime. But I had an amazing time. I enjoyed it. The kids were wonderful, playing in my hair, and like they were so loving. Like, the United States is so different from Jamaica. Like, everybody's like, I don't know how to say this, but like everything's different. Like, the money is different. Like, Americans seem rich over there. Not all of us are rich though. Like, everything's just so amazing in Jamaica. I would live there if my family was there. But it's okay, that's all.
Don't go sit down yet. You know, when this trip started at the very beginning, Taylor was in my thoughts to be on it. And initially her mom said she couldn't go. And it was barely maybe 2 months. I don't think it was that far out whenever she agreed to let that happen. And everybody had already raised their funds. And we were invited to stay for the youth congress afterward, where all the youth from all over the Caribbean showed up. And I had no idea how it was going to be paid for. And Taylor was supposed to raise $1,500, and she ended up with $2,500, which was enough to cover the expenses and stuff for that. But, you know, we went down there, and us Americans, compartmentalize everything we do, and it's got to be in the time structure that we have. And there were a lot of struggles up front from just about everybody on the team. But I mean, I knew how it was. 7 o'clock means maybe 8, 7, 7:45. Doesn't mean 7 o'clock. But as the week went by, I think everybody understood we didn't have the supplies. But it didn't matter, because I tell you what, those kids, I'll be willing to bet you that most of those kids know more Bible verses than most of our adults. They can set it and quote them over and over. They drill the Bible into their children, and those children love it too. They live their faith all day. But one of the reasons we went, well, let me talk about the team a little bit. The team was a mismatch of everything, which that's what Westtown is, so we might as well have the team that way too, hadn't we? But I see things from a different perspective, because we've had some teams that were stressed from beginning to end, but I watched this one. There were some issues up front, but I watched God just melt all the stuff away. And at the very end, we were a family, which is what he wants. And I hope to see all of them back next year. But one of the reasons we went, and I always get emotional when I talk about her, I want to tell you a little bit about Shanna Lee. Y'all have heard me talk about her quite a bit. She's, every 2 or 3 days, she'll send me a message on Facebook. How you doing, Uncle Woody? This afternoon, did you make it back okay? She never asked for anything, never. But we were helping with the house. Bernard, I've never known a man to have a heart that big. He helped Shannon's mom. He helped Shanna. He helped Acacia, Taylor's best friend she met from last year. He helped her mom. He does whatever he has to do. He spends his own money, and he doesn't have much to help them build stuff, because he wants to see them have the things they need. And Shanna, I've told you there were some issues that came up with her. But we went to that place, and when we got there, there was no roof on it at all. We actually didn't get to really do any work on it at all. The carpenter couldn't show up, and this didn't happen, and this didn't happen, and this didn't happen. But you know what? It doesn't matter, because on the day that we left, there was a roof on that thing, and there'll be a finished roof on it. And when we go back next year, we'll get to go visit Shanna at her house. But on the last day, whenever Taylor and I were leaving, Bernard took us by there. But he went by her house first, and it was a little bitty place, just one room. Shanna's bed here, Mom's bed, and it was brutal hot. I mean, it was 95 degrees in there at least, and no hope of it cooling down until it got night, because there were no windows, nothing, just a fan. And it was just to see that and to know the part that everybody has in what she's going to have. You know, she'll be here probably in about 3 weeks. Her and Bernard both, so you might get to see her and talk to her if things work out. But we stayed for the youth congress, and there were over probably about 1,000 people, don't y'all think, at the opening ceremony. And you know, I made bunches of mistakes in my life, and I still do. And I know God knows what He's doing, but I wouldn't pick me if I'd have been Him. But when I go down there, and they'll attest to it, it amazes me. I go there, and they treat me with respect. They set us in a convention center with 1,000 people. We were on the second row, sitting behind the college presidents and all that stuff. That's where we were. On the last night at the youth congress, they had the main table with all the leaders, all the leaders of church. And Reverend Cumberbatch, Taylor actually got to present him with a book from Dan Finch from 12 Stone. He's dying. He wrote a book about his grandfather. His grandfather helped start that work in the Caribbean, and she got to present it to him. And it was kind of corny, but I told him, I said, Reverend Cumberbatch, I said, this is the past. The future is presented to the present, which is you. So it was a meaningful moment, and he treats, the people treat you so well. But at the banquet, he got up there and he introduced everybody, and then he said, my friend Woody. And that means a lot to me, because I don't deserve that. But the mission trip is not about the VBS. That's what we do. It's not about Shanna's house. It's about the fact that when every one of these folks here go back down there and they walk in that door and those kids see them, and those ladies who did the cooking in the back, and Bernard and Kingsley. When I was at college graduation about a month ago, and the first thing Kingsley said to me, he knows some of the struggles Taylor's been having. He said, how's Taylor? These people really care. They're really intelligent. And we just need to continue. I don't see this as us doing for them. I see this as us doing with them, and they're giving to us maybe more than we can ever think of giving to them. But it brightens their day, it brightens their life, and it sure does something for me. So I just want to encourage everybody, if you get a chance, next year we'll be going back. It's going to always be the hottest part of the year, because that's the only time we can go is the last week of July. And they get out of school at the very end of June. Our kids start back in August, but that's when it'll be. And if you can go, go. But continue to pray. Pretty soon Bernard's not going to be there for Shanna. So I don't know who will be, but I do know this. Acacia's mom works in Antigua. Her daughter is in Jamaica. But that church rallies around them, the grandmother, the uncles. They do community in a way that I've never seen it done here. And a lot of it has to do with our culture. We're wide open, cranking, going every way. But just pray for those guys down there. Pray for us. Pray for me, because this is beyond anything I could ever imagine. But God's just opened doors up to make inroads where I didn't think would be there. So thank you for what you've done. Thank you for the money you gave, and just continue to pray. That's the biggest thing we need. Thank you.
No, Rod said that was
Doesn't
enough.
matter. The video, we're going to end it with Bernard speaking to us, and then Shanna.
Real fast. Woody alluded to it. Even if you can't physically go on the mission trip, it doesn't mean you can't support. And that doesn't even mean financially. Your prayers keep us safe while we're out there. And there's missionaries all around the world all the time. So at any given time, if you feel heavy on your heart, say a prayer, because maybe they need it. And I'll end with this. I'm sitting in the church downstairs. We always ate downstairs. And he had told me this, and I forgot about it. And Sheree made a comment about the tile. That tile that we were sitting on, Charlie Bearden had fixed a couple years ago. So, I mean, Westtown is all through that church. Westtown is loved in that area. So we go to Falmouth, and there's a whole story he can give you on that church. But some things went wrong. But he made a great point the other day. When things went wrong, there's a whole other church that's involved now and is now going to sponsor Falmouth Church, which is another church on the other, not the other side, but far away from where we were in Jamaica. And so instead of something that was really wrong, and so there was not misaccounting, but labor just cost more and they didn't have the receipt. So one church got frustrated and kind of pulled back, but another church stepped in. So now there's another church involved down there. So whenever a door is closed, don't think that's the end of it. You know, you can't go. Well, I'll find another way. And so I'd encourage you, just keep your eyes open, your ears open. Woody said it last week of July next year. We're already making plans. I think he's picked out a new place that's all-inclusive for us to stay, so we won't have some of the hotel struggles that we did. And it's just a really good time, and it's really not that expensive. Don't let the funding be the reason why. There's lots of ways we can raise money or find sponsorships or something. So I think with that, we'll have the video. Unless you wanted to say anything, boss. Okay.
Are y'all gonna
like sweep everything out and put down carpet, or just
We would put tiling.
Tile, like they do in all the places. I get a view from the outside.
Okay, guys, what happened to finish inside here? The bathroom will be in this corner. We'll be using drywall to come across here, and so we'll have a shower and a bathroom over this side. To our left here, we'll be having our kitchen sink, and this is where our little kitchen will be. Over this side, we have our living hall and a bedroom. So again, on behalf of Shauna and Garcia, I want to say a real big thank you to West Town for the contribution you have made in transforming something into reality. Thanks so much. Woody, he is the greatest, and his contribution have helped a lot in many ways, apart from just financially. But he has a drive, and I'm glad the day that we crossed paths. I want to say thanks to Pastor Rod and all those of you who have contributed.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to thank you for making this house accomplished. I want to thank you for making it a reality that I can have somewhere to stay. And up here is much cooler than where I was before. So I just want to say a big thank you to everyone that helped. And I hope to see you real soon.
Thank you, Shannon.
Thank each of you for going and sharing. I think it's been wonderful for us to be able to catch this on the early side of your getting back while it's pretty fresh in your hearts. And I just want to say a prayer in closing, and let's bow our heads for prayer. Jesus, thank you for just the beautiful way that your body works. And really this group is just, it's an example of how you gather people together, not even so much around the things that would typically draw people together, but around a mission, around a vision. And you gave each of these individuals the insight to go for it. They did, and just as we've heard here tonight, certainly their impact will continue to ripple throughout the lives of those children and the adults that they interacted with, but it will continue to ripple in their lives as well, these individuals, each one of their lives as well. Lord, there's a high probability that there's a number of people here tonight that said, hey, I really would like to do something like this. And I think there's, certainly we know we can all pray, and we can all, most of us can give. Not, and many can go. But help us to remember that there are people in need all around us, and we can be a missionary right in our own setting where we are, and that we don't have to wait till next year. We can do something to help people now. But also, if you've spoken to someone's heart, help that to just, that fire to burn. And when the opportunity arises, because what we do believe is, we do believe in the future, there's going to be multiple teams that are going to be going from Westtown and that throughout the year. And we're just asking, Lord, that you'll help us to be wise in stewarding that, and continue to just work in Woody's heart as the leader of our missions program here. Thank you for the people you gathered around him. Thank you for Philip being that kind of opposite and working well together with Woody, and helping things go as smoothly as possible. And thanks for every person here tonight And I pray your blessings in our lives. Give us a great week in you. And in Jesus' name I pray. Amen. I'm going to ask all the high school if you would meet in the conference room real quick, and we'll just make a real quick go over a couple things, and then we'll try to get out of here and get on our way. Okay? The rest of you, take your time, hang out, eat some more food.